So today I'll be doing a reaction video to the final AP rankings. These are the AP rankings, and I'll tell you the records of all of these teams. Uh, Michigan was 15-0. Washington was 14-1. Texas was 12-2. Georgia was 13-1. Alabama was 12-2. Florida State was 13-1. Oregon was 12-2. Missouri was 11-2. Ole Miss was 11-2. Ohio State was 11-2. Uh, LSU was 10-3. Penn State was 10-3. Notre Dame uh, was 10-3. Oklahoma was 10-3. Oklahoma State was 10-4. Tennessee was 9-4. Kansas State was 9-4. Louisville was 10-4. Clemson was 9-4. NC State was 9-4. SMU was 11-3. Kansas was 9-4. Iowa was 10-4. And Liberty uh, was 13-1. Now, this is how I think the final ranking should have been. Of course, mm, Michigan was mm, the best team for sure. Uh, mm, uh, mm, so they should be number one. Mm, and mm, uh, to me, Alabama was the second best team. Mm, mm, because I know they lost to Texas this year, but that was in week two, and you have to go by uh, mm, how the teams ended up, and mm, uh, in the end, mm, mm, Michigan blew out Washington, in the championship game, and Alabama took Michigan to overtime in the playoff game, and Washington beat Texas in a playoff game. Mm, mm, and mm, uh, Georgia, uh, to me, should be number three. Uh, though should not be ahead of Alabama because Alabama beat them uh, near the end of the season uh, in the SEC championship game, but it was really close. Mm, mm. So mm, I think that uh, Georgia should still be ahead of Texas, and I think that they were a better team than Washington at the end. So mm, mm, I'd put Washington at 4, uh, mm, mm, and Texas at 5, and uh, Ohio State. Mm, mm, to me, was really the sixth best team because they took uh, mm, Michigan almost to the end of the game. They only lost to Michigan by 6 points, and uh, I know they lost to Missouri in the bowl game, but their quarterback uh, dumped them after the Michigan lost and was already at a different team uh, in, when the bowl games uh, happened, and uh, uh, Marvin Harrison quit uh, before that game too, and uh, I call this sitting out stuff quitting, and I'll talk more about that in a different video. Uh, but uh, mm, you know that Ohio State would have scored more than 14 points in that game with their quarterback and Harrison at receiver. Mm, So they were really a better team than Missouri was. And then Oregon should be number 7 to me uh, because they lost to uh, Washington uh, twice, but only by 3 points each time. And Washington played for the championship this year, so Oregon was a really good team. Mm, and then mm, Florida State, mm, mm, to me, should be number 8. Uh, uh, to me, mm, uh, they were only the 8th best team, even with Jordan Travis healthy at quarterback, and uh, when they had all those players that quit uh, on them before the bowl game. Mm, But the bowl game made it obvious that Florida State didn't deserve to be in the college football playoff after they pouted about it for a long time. Mm, because mm, Alabama beat Georgia, who beat Florida State by 60 points. Mm, and mm, mm, the Florida State from that bowl game probably wasn't even a top 25 team, uh, really. Mm, mm, and mm, uh, Brock Bowers, the tight end for Georgia, even had quit on them mm, mm, after the SEC championship uh, game. Mm, mm. And so he didn't play in that game uh, against Florida State. And mm, if you're a Georgia fan, uh, uh, don't give me in the comments he was hurt because he was healthy enough to play in that SEC championship game. So he was obviously healthy enough to play in that bowl game nearly a month later. And uh, mm, also, don't give me in the comments if you're a Georgia fan. Uh, uh, Georgia was a better team than Alabama really was because Brock Bowers wasn't healthy in that game. Mm, uh, because mm, mm, Alabama had injuries in that game too. Mm, mm. They just shut down uh, uh, the tight end Brock Bowers, and also don't give me that it was rigged for Alabama. Georgia really won. That fourth down conversion wasn't a catch. It was a drop. No, it was not a drop. Uh, mm, you can rewatch that play on YouTube and then look up what a catch is in football, and then you'll know that uh, mm, that was a real catch and that Alabama won fairly, and they were just a better team than Georgia was last year. Mm, Now, Ole Miss to me was the 9th best team. Uh, they got a really good win against Penn State in the Peach Bowl. Uh, mm, Then LSU was the 10th best team. Uh, mm, and then Missouri, to me, for real, should only be number 11 uh, mm, because mm, mm, they lost to LSU when they played. And uh, LSU played Ole Miss and Alabama and Florida State. Those were their losses, and Missouri didn't play any of those teams. They played Georgia, uh, but other than LSU, that was the only other tough team they played until Ohio State, which uh, they didn't have all their players, and Missouri did all have all their players in that game. Mm, So LSU should be ahead of Missouri, even with one more loss than them. And then mm, Oklahoma should be number 12 to me because I know they lost to Arizona in the Alamo Bowl, but they had 6 turnovers in that game, and but they didn't have Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. Uh, so they had a freshman making his first ever college start, so they wouldn't have had all those turnovers with Gabriel at quarterback, and then they also had uh, several players on the offensive line uh, enter the portal and quit on them. Uh, and Arizona didn't have any quitters in that game. Mm. So uh, mm, the Oklahoma before that bowl game to me was obviously a better team than Arizona was. They beat Texas, who went to the college football playoff. Uh, mm, so I would still keep mm, Oklahoma ahead of Arizona, and then I'd put Penn State at 13 because they were still a good team, but they didn't get any big wins this year. Mm, Then I would put Oklahoma State at 14. Uh, they were a good team. They got the win in the final bedlam against Oklahoma, uh, but um, they did get blown out in the uh, conference championship game against Texas. And then uh, I'd put Arizona at 15 because uh, mm, they were good and uh, had a big winning streak at the end, but they weren't great. Mm, Then I put Louisville at 16 and Notre Dame at 17 because Louisville beat Notre Dame this season. They played, and Louisville won by a couple of scores. Mm, Then I'd put Kansas State ahead of Kansas because they played and Kansas State won the game. And then I would keep Kansas ahead of Tennessee because Kansas did get the big win against Oklahoma this year. Tennessee had no good wins, even though they had the same record as Kansas did. Uh, mm, and then uh, Mm. NC State, it should be ahead of Clemson because NC State has the win against them, and then they have the same record too. Uh, Clemson just wasn't near as good this year uh, as they have been in the past. And then Iowa should be number 23 to me because they had a really good defense, but they had no offense. They ended the season with 2 shutouts in a row. Uh, mm, uh, and if they were in the SEC, that they wouldn't have won anywhere near 10 games probably. So I think they're uh, a little bit overrated uh, with how good they were. Mm. And then West Virginia should be in the rankings to me. They went 9-4. They had a good year. Mm, 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 And uh, to me, Northwestern should be the number 25 team uh, at, at 8-5 this year. Mm, they beat Utah in the bowl game, and uh, uh, it's obvious that if Cameron Rising would have played in that bowl game, that Utah would have beat Northwestern. It was 14-7. They would have scored a lot more than 14, but uh, they didn't have him all year, so uh, I would put uh, Northwestern ahead of Utah. Uh, mm, mm. It was just a really good year for them, winning only one game the year before this, and then now getting to 8-5. Mm, and Liberty, who is ranked in the AP rankings, they have no business being in the top 25. I know they won all their games at 13-0, but uh, it's not that they weren't a Power Five team, but they hadn't played a Power Five team until uh, they played Oregon in that bowl game, which they had no business being in. and got blown out 45-6. Uh, so that was just crazy. Uh, Teams like that uh, that have proven nothing don't need to be in those New Year's Six bowl games. So mm, that will be it with this video, and uh, mm, uh, please subscribe to the channel. I still don't hardly have any subscribers yet, and um, I need all of you that are watching to do that because it's free. And I'm glad that you're watching. I appreciate it, but I need you to subscribe for me too, so I can keep this up. Uh, and thanks uh, again for watching, and uh, I'll be back with another video soon.